Appreciate that. Right. So I think we have started recording. So welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us for another session of Open Tech Convo. Today we have some wonderful panelists with us. We had 4, and I think we have 3 out of 4 in the audience. So that's, I think that's winning still. 3 out of 4, I'll take that. Normally we have everyone, but I think maybe there could be some other challenges, but I'll check on the last panelist, chase up and see. Today's topic is measuring performance. Do KPIs work in the Gambia? And I think this is a very, very relevant topic right now. Just this afternoon, friend Raymond King had a little event with Hassan, Assutech, and they had this program, that they were running, a 12-week program for programmers, software developers. And these guys had a opportunity to present. And one of the things I like about that program is for each program objective, they actually had a KPI. And it was pretty, pretty nice that they met these KPIs, at the, they met them, at today's presentation. So this is the end of the project. There was only one they didn't conclude on, which is getting these, programmers internships. But through the meeting, right after the meeting, some of them even secured internships, with some of the people in attendance. So it was pretty fun to see KPIs in action. And so, it's a very relevant topic. And I will let these panelists, indulge us some more. I'm sure people in the audience have questions, and I'm sure the panelists themselves have questions. So normally the way we run it, we have a Q&A right after introductions are made. So each panelist will get to introduce themselves, and after introductions, we get straight into Q&A and we chat our hearts out until we're done. And if we're not done, we'll schedule a second version, a second part 2 for this. So I'll start with the introductions, and then with the panelists, I'll call on your name and you introduce yourself, and share your experience, or your career, professional or private, as you wish. Just share what you want to share, because the more we know about you, the more questions can be thrown at you. And I'm not saying this to make you limit your introductions, but put yourself out there, put your neck on the line. But I'll give you a very, very short introduction. I am sitting Omar Lowe. You can call me Omar, or you can call me sitting. They used to call me Sheikh Omar. So Sheikh Omar in the audience, in the panel today, they used to confuse Sheikh Omar. Sheikh Omar, like, who? I'm not Sheikh, I'm sitting, he's Sheikh. So, but anyway, those are the days. We're not going to talk about those days. That's Vegas. So it's a pleasure to have you all. I'm currently an ITC enterprise coach. So we work with businesses on a daily, and that's what we do, business coaching, and learning and development. So helping develop talent. That is what I love to do. So pleasure having you all here. And now I will call on my half Tom to go ahead and be the first person to introduce himself. That is Sheikh Omar Jobe. And then we will, I'll call on the next person after he does his introductions. So thank you, Sheikh. Pleasure.
Hey, good to be here. I'm excited to be here. I see some familiar names on the audience here. So Raymond King and Passering. So hopefully we'll get them on camera and everybody adds to the conversation. I'm Sheikh Omar. I work in the healthcare field. So I actually work for a medical device manufacturer that makes heart valves. And then my sort of other half of my life is dedicated to a nonprofit. I started a healthcare nonprofit with global operation that does sort of cardiovascular sustainability help in terms of middle and low income population. And we do it globally. So we work in Africa, Middle East, and mostly in Latin America. But I'm excited to be here. Hopefully I get to give some healthcare perspective, but I'm hoping to learn as well. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Wonderful. See that you're wearing two hats, so we'll poke at both the hats. Next, we'll have Mr. Hassan Jallow from Assutech. I know he gets to see me twice today. He's probably going to be fed up of me. Hassan, are you with us? You're muted, by the way.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you with your nice reverb.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure having a chat with you, Serinj. It's always an opportunity to learn something new and be able to share a little bit. So I run a software engineering company in the Gambia called Assutech. It started in a bedroom 5 years ago. And now we have grown to a team of 14. We believe that we are on a mission to bring meaningful technological innovations to the masses to improve the quality of life on the African continent. And I like to describe myself as somebody who is truly honored to be able to lead a team of some of the most talented people that I've ever met. Assutech was my first job. It's the first job that I had when I was second year in university. And it's been my job ever since. Well, I did, as part of a fellowship, I did work at a data analytics company in Silicon Valley, which was a very valuable learning opportunity for me. So I'd be happy to have a chat about what I've been doing the past few years and what the team has been working on together.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Hassan. I appreciate that. You're a superstar. Yes, sir, MVP. Let's see. Next, we have Bubacarr Buddy with Smart. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are very happy to be here as Bubacarr Buddy of Smart Professional College. Taking pride in trying to see how we can bridge the skills gap in general, especially digital skills gap. I started my career in the banking sector. I worked for Ajib for 2 years immediately after high school. Then I joined the UNDP as a UNV attached to the Ministry of Information Data Center Unit. From there, I was absorbed by the government, the GOTG, let's say the government of the Gambia payroll system after the project, and later went to private sector. I know a couple of people on the list. We met when I was in the civil service, when I was with UNDP, and then when I'm now in the private sector. It's a very interesting perspective, both for the public sector and the private sector. Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate you, brother. All right, we can see your vast experience, and hopefully we want to tap onto some of that, especially the public sector too, because you know, part of this reason I took on this topic is also to get a public sector perspective. So hopefully maybe you can shed some light onto that. Thank you very much for sharing. Definitely. Okay. We had someone trying to join, but okay, here we are. Okay. So I think I don't see CD Omar Bensouda from INET in the participant list. CD, are you with us under a pseudonym, maybe, perhaps under a different name? Okay. Well, since we'll have him introduce himself, you know, as soon as he joins. But that would be the fourth panelist. So to get the conversation started, you know, first thing I wanted to ask, right, is, you know, what do we mean by the term KPIs? Okay, so KPI, what does it mean to each one of you? Do you currently employ KPIs in your various businesses, or have you encountered it in any other organization that you worked with? And if not, how do you currently measure the performance of yourself, your employees, and your company? So that is the question. Now I'll leave it to the panelists. Each one can share their perspective on the topic. And then if the participants also want to chime in, you can feel free. I believe everyone's mics have been allowed and everyone's cameras have been allowed. So feel free. I would say probably best practice would be you just turn on your mic and share your feedback after we've heard from the panelists. So I'll open the floor to the panelists, and anyone that wants to hop on to the subject matter, just go right ahead.
We nominate Hassan to go first. Easy.
Agreed.
You just didn't do that. Okay, very well then. So I think that it probably would be helpful for me to zero in on measuring KPIs, let's say from an engineering standpoint, let's say from a software engineering standpoint, how you were able to measure the performance of your team members. And I think, it always reminds me of the quote by Bob Parsons, the GoDaddy founder, who said, anything that is measured and watched improves. And I think in general, when it comes to having a software engineering team, how do you measure how everybody is doing as it relates to the long-term and short-term business objectives? So you can be able to measure performance for your business objectives, but then the low-level performance of the people who actually do the implementations that also translate to the high-level indicators of the overall business objectives. I think that I have had some. I'm still in a learning process of trying to understand, and perhaps there might be some lessons that can be shared in that regard. I think when it comes to developing software, there's work that you can be able to maybe substantiate, that you can see. That is code that is written, code that gets reviewed, and code that passes review, and code that gets shipped. Obviously, there's a lot that happens before that actually comes into place. There's a lot that happens, but I'll just zero in and let the other panelists talk about the other aspects. I think so. And if you're writing software, a lot of companies use, in fact, most companies use what you call a version control system. A version control system will allow you for people to collaborate, and whenever they work on something, they can push it into a central repository that both of them can share, and they can track the versions of it. The most famous one is Git. So one way, after you have specified your task and your goals, your short-term goals that need to be completed, you can be able to measure the progress of those tasks by what people have done against those tasks to get them done. So if you're using the Agile methodology, you can be able to measure the expected completion date of a particular ticket. A ticket could be a single task. So once that is specified, you can be able to see how you have done against that goal. So it would be a learning opportunity for you to see where the estimates correct, was the estimation of the level of complexity of that task correct. So, and if you aggregate all of that together, it helps you to be able to measure how much progress you can make for an overall project, and be able to understand whether you have checked off the boxes of all the tickets and the tasks that were specified. So at a very high level, this is a method that we have used, but one of the drawbacks of this is you don't really want to measure performance by people doing commits, the commits people, work that is visible. There's a lot of work that people do that is not visible, including people who are not necessarily writing a lot of code, but they're helping other people complete their task. They're helping coach other people. They're helping people answer questions. They're helping explain certain concepts that people are missing. So if you use only the commits to measure performance, you could end up in a situation where people could, especially if this performance is rewarded, you could end up in a situation where people will focus more on getting their individual commits up as opposed to collaborating and having a collective responsibility of getting the overall task of the company done. So these are some of the drawbacks, and there have been some really interesting, innovative ways that other companies like Facebook and Google have used to kind of balance this out, to be able to quantify work that has not been seen. So if you complete a task, has somebody helped you complete that task? Because you want a situation where it's not everything is everybody else's business, where people are able to work together and collaborate together to get the task done, as opposed to just individuals zeroing in on a particular task and the primary focus in getting that task published and not focusing a lot on helping other people grow, which in the long term, it would be more valuable to the company. So I'll just stop at that for now, and then we'll have more discussions as questions come up.
Thank you, Hassan. That is a very insightful way to answer that question. Lots of nuggets in there. And from a software developer standpoint, I can definitely see, how sometimes, doing tasks that are not very, quantitative can be a bit hard to, in fact, measure using, KPIs, or let's just say it can be a bit tough to quantify. So yes, certainly do appreciate that. And we will be getting back to you on that. I think next we will have Sheikh Omar share his insights. I saw him turn his camera on and then he turned it off. So.
Oh no, that was Hassan. But I think KPIs it's an overused term now. Everybody kind of talks about it, especially out there in the world. And the question for your sort of the panel topic: do KPIs work in the Gambia? I mean, KPIs work everywhere. That's the reality of it. If you're willing to measure yourself and willing to put metrics up, KPIs work. It doesn't matter if you're selling watermelon or you run a tailoring shop, an atelier somewhere. So from my perspective, I always use the healthcare example, because I have a little nephew that goes to college. He asked me, what's a KPI? Can you sort of break that down in a way that I can understand? I thought, well, let's give it a shot. But like in a healthcare setting, right? If you went to an emergency room and then you have like people breaking their arms, people coming in, pregnant women and sick people. And, whenever people come into the hospital, the doctors do a few things, right? They check your blood pressure, they see your temperature, they say, how much do you weigh? They get some of your history. And for me, that's what the KPI is. The doctor doesn't know where he's going yet, right? But he knows there's few things he wants to measure to give a baseline. And so that in the end, if he offers a treatment to you, he can measure that against what he had in the interim when you got there, right? So I always use KPIs as an example in healthcare. Like if they measure your blood pressure, whether or not you broke your arm has nothing to do with your blood pressure. But the doctor himself wants to have a baseline. He wants to figure out, okay, let me measure 5 things first. And then let me begin my treatment. And at the end of that treatment, I'm going to come back and see if those 5 things have changed or not. And I think a KPI would do that to any business, right? I'm in healthcare. So when I work on sort of nonprofits, we have, different KPIs. And the major ones that we use for us is, how many people are we touching in terms of when we do our global, healthcare charitable work? How many donors did we have the previous year? And do we set a goal to increase that? Or do we set a goal to say, you know what, we don't want 12 donors next year. We want to retain the 10 that gave us money this year. And that's a KPI that we use to measure ourselves. And what we do is we use our other KPIs, which showed we went to Lebanon and treated 4,000 people. We went to Jordan and treated 1,000 people. Those things we use is a key performance indicator. We serve that up to our donors, and they keep giving us donations. And we have another KPI on those donations because now these people are getting retained by us to continue giving money year after year. So a KPI could work in any setting. The question is what you're doing measurable? Because I always say this in Gambia, if you don't have KPIs for the business, you're only doing what we call tough. Like you don't have a business. That's tough. Money's going in, it's going out. Nobody's measuring anything. You're just running a deep cycle. But if you start measuring those KPIs, it becomes actually a viable business because you're measuring against goals that can feed into how you do your work in the future. So I think it works everywhere. The question is, are people able to sort of decipher what the actual KPIs for the business is, what feeds into the different levels to allow them to measure themselves, tweak if they have to, and know what success looks like. And I think that's what a KPI would do for a business.
Thank you, Tom. Definitely. You hit the nail on the head. Right, so we have another panelist. Bubacarr, you want to take a stab as well before we start adding branches to the chat? Because Sheikh has put out a couple things, Hassan has put out a couple things that can be poked at. So they're certainly laying their necks on the line, and that's brilliant.
Thank you. I agree with the theme. For me, it's different perspective and how different institutions apply KPI and how serious are they or these institutions about it. You will realize in the private sector, in the banking sector, in the UNDP, it's totally different. They are all using KPIs, of course, but like each institution or each set of institutions have a different interest in terms of how they handle their KPI. For example, UNDP, for example, disbursement is very important. Activities are completed within the quarter is very important. So for me, it's a measurement of what you want to achieve at the end of the day. And this measurement will help you to know how far you are within the ultimate business objective or the organizational objective. And if you know how far you are, then it will help you to zero into what more can you do to improve those measurements or those numbers. For example, at the banking sector, they will say deposit. The objective is to increase the number of depositors coming. And if you see the marketing or the sales department will always be focusing on how many people do you get open an account. Another set will be interested in these people who open this account, how much are they deposited and keeping it there, for example, what type of accounts are they opening. So this is very important for the liquidity of the bank. But if you come to government, it's like you have a lot of people's management or operational issues within the government. How are these leaves managed? How are, let's say, activities, the projects managed? So it's totally different. But for me, I believe the private sector and the UN agency is applying more of measurement, and especially using technology in this measurement. Government is like, they have the ultimate objective, but zeroing into individual achievable indicators to link to the ultimate objective is a bit missing, but government is really serious in planning it. But I will take private sector and the UNDP as more serious in terms of measuring the more KPIs they are looking for and and the use of technology in those things. MRC is a very good example. If you check MRC/KPI, you will see very interesting. We do use it in terms of if we are to go to a company, like we want to offer you training and the like, we want to look at your KPI. What are your KPIs in terms of the staff training? So you realize one of the ones we stumble upon is MRC, and they have very detailed KPI whereby you can go and say, I want to give IT training. Okay, what is the KPI of the ICT training in MRC? You see the details and you know whether it's met or not. So it's up there. That's my perspective. I think they have different level of seriousness about it, but all of them apply.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wowee. All right. Thank you all for taking a stab. This is brilliant. And I appreciate you turning on your cameras. I know, this is recorded. So as your camera's on, you get to be recorded while you speak. So that's one good thing. That's why I've spotlighted all of you, whether you have them on or not. But I do appreciate all of your input. It is so good. I think what I'll do is I'll open the floor to the participants. So anybody that wants to take a stab at it, feel free to give me your input. And if you have questions, maybe there are some basic questions that you want to ask. Questions such as, I know KPIs have been described already by Sheikh Omar and Raymond King in the chat, which are key performance indicators. So if you have a different business and you're thinking about how you want to measure your business performance and you have questions, feel free to ask. We will be asking that in the chat. It was coming soon as well. But for now, let's keep on the same question and open it to the participants. Anybody else that wants to share? I think, let's see, we have someone else joining. Anybody else wants to take a stab?
Pons Light here speaking.
Hey, Pons.
Yes. Thank you, Serena, and thank you, Sheikh Umar. I think I really liked your definition. My kid's sister, she always uses that basic definition that you used on defining KPIs and saying, oh, when you go to the hospital, your vitals and stuff like that. I think for me, Serena, I could have liked to rephrase your topic for today. Do organizations in the Gambia use KPIs properly? I think that's where I felt that is where we should be looking at, because you have Hassan, you have Barry. They are all people that run companies here doing well, and they have to relate with other people in terms of deliverables for their to be able to measure those deliverables with KPIs. And you'll discover that in most end of the thing, in most end of the game here, is that people are not being up to the task to make you achieve your KPIs. And that is why I think, in my opinion, Barry gave the examples, because they already have this set structure, the UNDPs and the banks in Gambia, that, okay, this is how they measure. And if I will add the World Bank, I just finished a digital skills project for the World Bank. They were looking at various in their digital transformation project and talking to various governmental agencies. You cannot even be able to track within the National Development Plan of 2018 to 2021 what KPIs have been achieved. And we are coming to the end of 2021. For example, they tell us, oh, digital economy is a cross-cutting team across all the key priorities areas. What has digital transformation done for youths? So that's where I will stop, and I would like to hear, Siri, your opinion on where I came from. Thank you.
Thank you, Pons. I certainly do appreciate that. And I think, just as you've mentioned, are the companies, both public and private sector, implementing KPIs properly? Yeah, that certainly ties in to the topic. But yes, it's very valid, and we will certainly share our opinions and discuss it further. I'm sure everybody will be more than happy to share. And thank you very much for your input. Indeed, it it certainly expands the topic further. I have Ibrahima Suare, who wants to ask a question. Ibrahima, feel free to unmute and speak or give your feedback. But Pons, certainly we'll get back to you. We'll certainly get to it.
Okay, thank you. My name is Ibrahima Suare. Thank you all the panelists for that brilliant introduction. As one of the panelists has mentioned earlier, I have this mixed feeling of KPI has been a quantifiable information for measurements. So in the Gambia, people tend to confuse metrics and KPI. I don't know if you can set some more light on those things. Metrics, because these are like what I'm trying to say, the quantifiable information that gives you the measurable goals. So there are informations that are gathered for you to analyze or for you to come up with your KPIs. So what are the difference between a metric and a KPI?
Thank you, Ibrahima, for your question. Certainly, things we measure are metrics, right? So when we take measurements, we have metrics. Oh, you have your hand up again. Did you want to say one more thing before I put it out there?
Sorry, you can continue.
Okay, sorry, because your hand was up. So, okay, no worries. So lots of companies measure different things, of course. So one thing to note is, 1 second, I pinned you by accident. I'll just unpin you. Okay. So one thing to note is, companies want to measure certain things that help them track whatever variables they're interested in. Some companies measure things that help them achieve their goals, and these things that help them achieve their goals, these are part of what are called performance indicators. So there's a ton of performance indicators that companies can use inside, and I believe some of the panelists have alluded, have spoken about this already. So there are lots of things that companies can measure, these things are all part of things that could be, things that point to how well the company is doing in terms of any variable that they're interested in, because a lot of companies don't just have financial perspectives. A lot of companies are looking at customers. A lot of companies are looking at community. A lot of companies are looking at employee development, internal processes. So there are lots of different things companies want to measure, and those measurements they take are metrics, and these metrics can guide different actions. But in terms of really pinpointing, performance, you have to sort of find a correlation between what you measure and the performance, right? So if I measure, for example, as Bubacarr was saying, the banks are measuring how many people make deposits. What do banks want? So deposits could be what they call a North Star metric. So that is basically a metric that's going to show you where you're going. Because if banks don't have money, they can't do anything. I mean, that's why banks always find a way to keep your money in it. They don't want you to take it. If you want to go for withdrawal, even in Gambia, they do it. They'll tell you, no, the machine, you can only take 20,000 out today. There's a problem with the system. It's all tactics to keep your money in the bank. But at the end of the day, it will guide. If they see how much money they have, they can see how to flip that money, which is basically what banks do. They try to use your money to work for them, and they give you a little percentage, very minimal anyway, unless you want to promise that you'll keep your money with them for a longer period. So you can measure lots of things. So indeed, there are lots of different metrics you can measure. But in terms of how do you classify that metric as a performance indicator, now that becomes a little bit more of a challenge, right? Because as Hassan was saying, because not every every transaction is as easy as deposit and you count. Some things can't be counted. Like, are you going to count the lines of code that someone does? Are you going to count how many projects they submit? So, some things will take longer to measure. Whereas, when some companies, they take some of these performance indicators and they classify them as key performance indicators because these are very delicate. If they don't, classify this as a key performance indicator and track it, and some companies do track hourly performance indicators. Some companies even per minute. They have dashboards. They're looking at when they go red, someone's getting up right away to go and fix that issue. Because altogether, from a big goal, if you break it down to a very small goal and assign goals for each department, when they hit those targets, which are the key performance indicators that they have, it will add back up all the way to the big goal the company wants to achieve. So you have to be very careful. You can definitely take metrics. You can definitely use analytics, which are also metrics anyway that help you gauge. And I mean, a lot of companies are doing it. Google and all these social media companies have analytics as well. They are also measurements that can help you gauge your performance. But at the end of the day, the KPIs that you choose are selected by a strategic team that know where the company wants to go, that know what the company needs to measure. So it's not everything that's measured that changes into a KPI. So certain things are certainly more important than others. So anyway, this is I'll stop here because I don't want to keep going. But this is just my little input. I hope this was a little bit into what Ibrahima wanted to clarify. But I'll open the floor to the other panelists because I see Bubacarr also wants to take a stab, and I'm sure Sheikh is smiling and ready to add something to it, as well as Hassan. So and even Oluwale also wants to add. So there's a lot of people in line waiting to add. So I'll allow the panelists to add their extra seasoning on it, and then maybe by the time it gets to Oluwale, Ibrahima will be very satisfied with what we've been able to share so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. For me, I think, as you said, Sherin, in your last point, that is not all that is measured is an indicator. That concludes it. Virtually all what you do in your institution are some kind of metrics in terms of the process. So, but not all the metrics are your indicator because not all the process indicates whether you are successful or not. So these points will identify whether you are successful or not, or whether you are succeeding or not at the indicator aspect of it. I really like where point is pointing it. I was afraid that this discussion will drift to that. Are we really applying it properly in the Gambia? That's the question. So yes, there are a lot of attempts that were done with government in partnership with UNDP. I remember Dominic Mendy did a balanced scorecard system for more than 14 ministries at some point. But if it is not linked to your HR system, like to your performance management system, it's difficult to achieve. So let's go to the banking sector. How many people deposit? Those are indicators like how much they deposit. But what the sales and marketing are doing to get people to deposit in these amounts of money are metrics as well. How many people, or the objective of a particular marketing person to meet a number of customers or number of visits, those are metrics that they use to measure the process of getting to the indicator that they are looking for. So for me, there was this balanced scorecard, which is basically a performance indicator system or performance management system that was attempted by government. It didn't work as planned, of course, because it was not linked to the HR system, to the promotion and rewarding and all the other metrics. So that's why it will be very difficult for you to link the NDP to any indication, because it's not linked to what I do when I come to office in the government or in the public sector. So if it is not linked to that, how am I going to dissect or achieve that? So I believe it is possible, but it first has to come to what the individual public servant is doing by the day, or whoever it is linked to these indicators or to these ultimate objectives of the NDP or the UNDAP of UNDP is doing. That is what will get us to implementing the performance indicators as we want. But yes, you are right, Sheikh. Not all that is measured is an indicator, but a lot of the process are all metrics. Thank you.
Great comment. Look at City. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll just add a little bit to it. I think you guys have nailed it. And I think we can add Ponce's question to it. I think in Gambia, what I've learned, interacting with the government, non-government, especially with the nonprofit, we work directly with the health ministry. And what you realize is people actually do know what those KPIs are. They're just not measuring it by design. You measure a KPI. KPI comes with accountability. And if you don't want to be accountable to anything, you do not want to measure KPIs because you will expose yourself fairly quickly if you're not doing your work. And I think that's the reason a lot of people don't like KPIs, even in the US. I mean, I work in a Fortune 100 company, and there's a lot of people who do not want to measure. And you have incumbents too. So like you see the Syrians, the Hassans of the world trying to come in, change, the behavior, change the culture. The incumbents, when you're in a company here, it can be Apple, Google, any company, incumbents don't want to change because the last thing they want to do is to have a KPI that shows whether or not they are being successful. And the best thing you want, if you're an incumbent, is something that's subjective, right? Does somebody like you? You've been doing this job for 25 years. Those are very subjective. And I'll give you an example. Like in my line of work, I'll have two different things, right? I have to meet with maybe 10 chiefs of surgery in the US every quarter. That's a nice metric. If I hit those 10, people will say, hey, we hit all these 10 surgical chiefs and, we have a good relationship with these guys. But the actual KPIs for me is something else that's different, right? I have a clinical trial to get a product approved in the US for usage so we can sell it, the company can make money. The actual KPI for me is these chiefs of surgery are meeting, are these trials enrolling patients at the pace that I need it for, right? So on one hand, I'm meeting with them, that's a metric. On the other hand, is this translating into enrollment? Are they giving the patients the device so we can study it quickly, so we can get the product approved? That's a KPI. That's an indicator of whether or not the clinical trial is being successful. Am I getting this product approved? Are we going to make money? The second one is, am I meeting with them? That's just a check mark. It's a nice metric, but you meeting with them it's not an indicator of whether or not we're doing well. Rather, when I leave those meetings, if I go back to the office, are they enrolling in this clinical trial? That's an indicator for me to show that I am working towards my goal of getting this trial completed and the product approved. So I hope that helps. Lowe got the little clap going right now.
Thank you. Tom, hit the nail again. You spoke so well. I think there was a hand that was up that went down. So yeah, you certainly shared some couple things between you and Bubacarr. You've knocked out one hand, and I think by the time Hassan gets back, adds his little salt to it, we'll probably get even closer to satisfying Ibrahima. So that's our KPI. Let's see if Ibrahima approves. Hassan, you want to add something?
I don't have any comments at this particular time.
Okay.
I think Bubacarr and Omar have done a good job at responding to that question.
I know they've definitely broken it down. We have Olawale, Mr. Fabi, and then Pons. Actually, we have Sering Moduba and Pons ready to share as well. So Olawale first.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello.
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming up with these convos. I think they are very timely and important at this time. And thank you to the panelists. I'm learning so much in this. Yeah, I'd like to add up to what everyone has contributed, and also to answer the question the young man asked. For me, KPIs, some organizations or some people call it key performance indicators, while others call it key performance index. And we know index are what? Numbers. Metrics are also numbers. So they are similar but different. If we have to bring in a real world example, we could say, taking a startup, for example, right? We could say the KPI should be maybe customer acquisition every month. The KPI should be customer acquisition every month. And then the metrics, we measure against the metrics. The metrics could be maybe 1,000 users every month. So if we hit our metric for the month, let's say 1,050, means we have met our KPI for the month. So I think for me, this is one way to look at both of them. They are same but different. So numbers, the indicator is actually what we are trying to measure. And then the metric itself is how we got to where we want to get to. Like, how did we get to 1,000 or did we go past 1,000? So that's the metric. Thank you very much.
Nice.
Thank you, Olawale.
Good work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, because I think what we need to remember is every KPI is a metric, but not every metric is a KPI. I think that's the general rule, right? Every KPI is a metric, but not every metric is a KPI that's telling you where you're going and whether you're doing the right things by your business or your project.
Indeed, indeed. Tom, we got another, well, now we got Sering Modu from Moisi, wants to add something, and then we'll go to Pons. Thank you, Olawale. Certainly very insightful. Key Performance Index.
Okay, thank you so very much, everyone. I just got the information right now to join you people. I think it's a fruitful discussion. So mine is more of a bit shift from the question raised by Ibrahim. It's more, my question is more of what I would love to learn from you is more of how important is the variable or data that is being used or cooked to determine the quality of that data being used or cooked to determine the KPIs. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll let Hassan take a stab at this one. He's been quiet a little bit.
Right. I think that I think the key word there is really the data, the value of the data that is being used to determine the ATP or cooked. So I think that, yeah, I mean, your key performance indicators are the indicators that you are measuring are really of no value if the information is cooked. I think that from a technology standpoint, there are so many ways. I mean, from a technology company, I think that there are so many ways that you can measure performance. Like what I said, from a business standpoint, it would be your user acquisition. If you're building a product, how many users you're able to close, how many conversions that you were able to make. But I think that if that data is not accurate, really it's not. It's just plain simple. Your indicators are incorrect. Whatever you're going to be using to make a decision from, it's not particularly correct. I think what would be useful is how do you ensure and how do you validate that the information that you're getting is correct? I mean, in the private sector, you tend to see the consequences of that almost immediately. I imagined from a business standpoint. So you really don't have any room to navigate in that regard. But I think in the public sector, I can let Bubacarr give some insights of how he thinks we can make sure that the information that we get, how are you able to validate? Okay, here are our KPIs. Okay, this is the progress that we have made against the KPIs. How are we able to validate that this is correct? And I imagine in the definition of those KPIs, there should be some way that we can say, this is how we can really prove that you have hit these metrics. You've checked off these boxes.
Bubacarr, Hassan's calling you out. But since we had Pons's hand up, I think we'll hear from Pons, and then we'll get back to Bubacarr to share his insights, and then we'll continue along the lines of Sering Modu's question. So Pons, the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to throw some one question in two to our very great panelists. It's in regards to what Omar said about, which I totally agree about. Not organizations in Gambia, they know about KPIs, but in my question, do they actually use it and stuff like that? So I would like them to say, for big organizations, I would like to know, for big organizations in the Gambia, like the ministries, the parastatals, and for small SMEs and startups, what KPI tool will you advise them to use? Because I think in most cases, they know, people know about these things. You know, the word is out there, and sometimes it's actually misused. You know, but what tools are they? Do they really have tools? So I'd like to know, because Hassan, being a startup founder, he uses tools and a software engineer too. So the same thing with Barry and also Shelma with the health system. So I would like to know, how will you grade it? Because I'm selling watermelon, for example, the example they gave. I'm selling watermelon. I need to be able to know what KPIs I'll be able to use to measure my startup selling watermelon, because it's seasonal and I don't want to be dealing with it. I want to be dealing with it, not let it, my watermelon not be like our tourist season, only 6 months. I want it to be 12 months of the year. So I would like to know that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pons. Certainly. So we'll first allow Bubacarr to take a stab at it, and then I know some of us want to add one or two things. So we will, after Bubacarr adds his 2 cents, then we'll see what we can add onto it as well. And I think Olawale also wants to add something. So after the panelists have added, we will revert back to Olawale and have him add something, whether it's feedback, comment, or question. Thank you. Bubacarr, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. For me, especially for Serin Modu's data quality aspect is
Is he frozen, or is it?
Yeah, I think it's frozen.
Hello?
Yeah, he's
okay,
back.
okay, you're back. Okay.
Okay. For me, it's like knowing what is possible. It's very important in setting your KPIs. If you put an indicator that you can never achieve, it means you will not achieve it. So now, the quality of data will give you what is possible. If you know what you've been doing, like the market size and all the activities that you're supposed to do, especially when it comes to the data, you know exactly what KPIs you can do. The best example of that is GRA. Every year they do come. The Brahma by the way, is from GRA. You know the annual target for GRA. It's a KPI. So that annual target is either you under target or you over target when you don't have the actual data. For example, if you know the total number of businesses, I always take this challenge like, how many corner shops do we have in the Gambia? If they are all paying tax, how much will GRA get? So if GRA is not getting the data on the corner shops, the market, the number of shops in the market for KMC, they cannot put the right KPIs to know exactly how much KMC can collect from the Serakunda market. So the quality of data is the most important thing in terms of you putting your target in a reachable and smart way, so that you know this target, when I put it here, I need to do this metric in terms of the process and achieve it. But the quality of data is always what will make it possible to put proper indicators and also achieve them. For ponds, I believe there are a lot of technologies there that
I think he's somewhat frozen, and I think he was about to answer Pons.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Bubacarr, you back. So you said for ponds.
Yes, for funds, what I was saying is the most important thing is, especially corporate companies, most of the performance indicators need to link to the HR system, like government. I know one company, it was a Ukrainian company, now they are selling in US and other companies. They use a SharePoint system called Lanteria. They build it, but they're doing very good in terms of performance management. So for me, any simple open source solution that can measure what you want to do. As a startup, start simple. Basic, simple targets that you want to achieve. If you want 10 customers per month, 10 customers per month, sometimes indicate how much you want to earn from them. What I realize is you might have a big list of what you want, but the reward from that individual customers is very important. You want a customer that is within this range, that can spend this amount of money in your company is very important. So the purchasing power of the targets you are doing is also very important for the customers, especially for the startups. And corporates need to look for a HR system that can incorporate a performance management system. It will be easier. So I just sent the link of the MRC KPI, and I'm going to send the Lanteria product also. Is per user base. Is a very good KPI measurement system. Thank you.
Thank you, Bubacarr. Okay, we have a question also from the audience in the chat box, but I will let Olawale first give his feedback, and then after that we will take the question in the chat, and then Ibrahima wants to add one more thing, and then we'll see anyone else that wants to take a stab. Okay, Olawale, the floor is yours if you don't mind.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you again. I believe KPIs should be at the heart of every company strategy, and transformation. With this, they'll be able to plan. For example, saying, okay, I'll go back to take the watermelon example. In your business plan, and then trying to see the outlook of the business, you need to plan on, okay, this is the number of watermelon I need to sell before the end of the month or before the end of the year. So I believe before even trying to say that, okay, this is our KPI or this is what we want to work out as our KPI, it needs to sit at the heart of strategy, strategy and implementation. With this, it's easier to actually link it to all other indicators, so that we know, okay, yes, we've been able to meet up with our long-term goals, our short-term goals. So for me, I believe it still sits at the heart of strategy, be it long-term or short-term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olawale. Appreciate that. Valid points from both Olawale and Bubacarr. Definitely, getting to the heart of the subject. And thank you to everyone that's continuing to brew this conversation. We are 15 minutes past the hour mark. At this point, normally by the hour, I was supposed to stop, but this conversation has been so beautiful that I was not even looking at the clock. So, but normally, if there's anyone that has somewhere to be, at this point, for the panelists, I would allow for the panelists to give a closing statement if they have somewhere else to be. However, if they're okay with maybe another 15 minutes, we will try to, keep going to at least ensure we answer every question. But as I said, it is not really a one-time thing. We can always come back with KPI part 2 and have the same panelists or even add more. It's very nice that everybody is certainly interested. I love the interest. that is being shown. So I think I have everyone that's okay with all the panelists seem to be fine with continuing. So we'll take it another 14 minutes and then we'll see how we end up. At this point, I will take Pierre's question to the panelists. It says, as the head of your company, how are you measuring revenue, profit margins, and customer acquisition? So I'll read it one more time. As the head of your company, and I think he's directing it at Assutech, how are you measuring revenue, profit margins, and customer acquisition? Hassan?
So that's a very good question. I think that it's usually between revenue and customer acquisition. Because, I mean, for us as a company, we have a long-term vision, and we are in this for the long term. And if we are able to scale our operations and able to optimize our operations, increase revenue, and increase our customer acquisition, it's just a matter of time before we can be able to be profitable. So I think those two are our primary focus, revenue and customer acquisition. And naturally, we will at some point we would break even for as long as we keep growing.
Thank you, Hassan. I appreciate that. Hang in there. And as you know, you have all your brothers, so we're with you. And Pierre is not giving up. Pierre says, how are you measuring it today? He's not giving up. He's not going to let you slide. So you need to give him something for him to be satisfied. Yeah. And then we will move. I think we had another hand up.
Excellent. So just like any company, we have targets that we want to accomplish by the end of the year. So we have a board and we sit down based on our capacity, based on the long-term objectives of the company. We say that this is what we want to be able to accomplish by end of year. And this is what we want to accomplish every quarter. These are the potential markets that we want to get into. These are the potential companies that we want to do business with. These are some of the collaborations that we want to do. So when we set up these targets, if we're able to execute on these targets, we measure and see how well we're doing. If something doesn't work out, we find a suitable replacement for it and find a way to work around it. So at this point, that's at a very basic level, that's what we do. I hope that answers your question, Per. Feel free to let me know if you need further clarification.
Pierre, you can just unmute and tell us if you're satisfied. If not, you can drill him down further. We're giving you permission.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So I think no, thanks for sharing the perspective. Yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of get a sense of how you are actually measuring it today, right? Because there's different factors. If you take, I was using customer acquisition as an example, right? So to acquire a customer, there's several different factors that you take into consideration, right, to acquire a customer, right? So, for example, your marketing dollars, right? You know, your sales strategy and things like that. So, I just wanted to kind of understand what are you doing today in that space, and how are you measuring that to be able to understand, you know, what you're spending, like what your target spend is, for example, to acquire a customer versus your overall, you know, revenue, for as an example, right? So, because that's a very important metric if you think about, you know, when you're running a business. So I was just curious, right, just to kind of understand how you're approaching revenue measurements and profit margin measurements, and that of how you acquire your customers. So I just wanted to get your insights as to what you're doing today. Does that help?
Yes, totally, it does. So this might come interesting, but we have almost zero marketing budget. So, the scale at which we operate, given that this country is small, and the scale at which we operate as a startup, we've been around for close to 5 years now, but the way we have been operating has mostly been word of mouth, right? And given the engineering capacity that we have right now, versus what we're able to do, we really never proactively marketed out there. So some of the work that has kept us busy in the past few months has been in Berlin. It all happened through meeting somebody, explaining something, and then we have a client that we had an opportunity to try something out, and they liked it, and we continued working since. So at the scale at which we operate, we haven't really been proactively spending a lot directly on marketing. So at the scale at which we operate right now, we have not really been measuring how much did it cost us to close this particular client. But I see that in the very near future, where we have a lot of focus on consumer products, this is something that we'll be paying very, very close attention to. And we had an opportunity to try it out with a product that didn't quite work very well. And I think in the next few months or so, we'll be learning a lot more about how are we able to measure customer acquisition. But I think for starters mostly, we start with a closed group, and then when we are trying to get into the mainstream market, we would have a more significant marketing budget.
Yeah, so I think that's something to really think through, especially if you're thinking at scaling, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have, if it's word of mouth, or let's say you're hoping and banking on what you deliver to clients and hope they'll repeat and come back, you're taking it's like a game of chance at the end of the day. Like, it has to be very pointed in terms of how are you going after what customer, what demographic, what sector, that kind of thing, right? So it has to be well thought of and well planned. So if, let's say, it costs you $5 to acquire a customer, right? But in return, you only get $3, right, from customer spend. You're losing money. So times that at scale, you won't be profitable. Just as an example, right? So it's very important. And again, this is just one part of the puzzle, right? You have revenue, you have profit margin and things like that. So I was just using that as a simple example, just to kind of see and understand, what the thought process was there from acquiring customers. But again, going back to the whole question of, as you scale, you can't just rely on word of mouth, and you can't just rely on repeat customers, right? Because customers can go anywhere as they choose to. So how do you retain them, right? So the strategy behind it. So, but yeah, just just some food for thought. That's all.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pierre. Appreciate that. Yes, indeed. We got Olawale. Who wants to share something?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Pierre. I'd like to just contribute something more based on your question in the chat as regards customer acquisition cost. Would add customer churn. Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we are hearing you.
Yes, I think organizations should also add churn analysis to their KPIs, because a lot of times organizations spend so much acquiring customers, but then it is so easy to lose these customers. I'm currently working on a churn model to see how customers leave Gamtel, and then it's bewildering to actually see that a lot of people just get in organizations like Gamtel they spend a lot of money to bring in customers, and it's so easy to lose them. Why? Some issues come up. Customer service is very bad. They're not getting as much as they want. So all these things are issues that actually push customers to, sometimes they might look at alternatives, right? So I think organization, as much as people or organizations are looking at how to acquire customers, they should also put churn
as part of their strategy also, to see why customers want to attract to other organizations, or why they want to leave them, why they don't want to do business with them again. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think what he said was right. You can look at churn and especially customer satisfaction. One of the things, though, is when you look at customer behavior, is to take the subjectivity out of it. Customer behavior is very subjective. And so you got to figure out what are the right tangible metrics that you can put in measuring that customer behavior, right? Because you're providing a service. So the question is your service doing that? And the extra stuff is nice, but if you drill down to customers at the very core, you realize customers are no different from just regular people. So you have to figure out if what I'm measuring tangible. And like Sheikh said earlier, is it a North Star? Is it giving me directionality as well? And because Ponce has asked, how do you know if the quality of the data is legit, right? For me, is take the subjectivity out of it. Numbers by definition are quant, right? They're very quantitative. So if you take subjectivity out of it, it's always easy to see whether the data is real or not. And it's as simple as, if we stood, let's say we're in Gambia, we stood at Westfield, and our goal is to get to Banjo. If you were blindfolded for half the distance and somebody took it off, if you woke up and you found yourself at American Embassy, that's a terrible that's a terrible place to be, right? You can head to Banjo, take a right on that traffic light, you'll still head to Banjo. But if the guy woke up the other side and saw Jimpack, his directionality is much better than yours. At the end of the day, you have to be able to make sure that you have directionality. And if the data you're looking at is real, it's simple. Do you have a North Star? Because whatever the goal is how you get there is maybe challenging, but you got to figure out, do I have directionality and is this real? So the guy who unblindfolds himself and sees Jimpack, he is headed to Banjo. If you're at American Embassy, you can still head to Banjo, but you started at the very wrong spot. And so that's sort of how I think about it. And I hope that Gambia analogy, most people hopefully are in Gambia have ever visited. But that's sort of a simple way to think about it, because you got to have that North Star that gives you, validates whether the data is good or not. And if you take subjectivity out of it, for the most part, you'll see that the data speaks for itself.
Oh, Pasering wants to share something. Pasering. Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you, Olawale. Pasering, the floor is yours.
Sheikh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep. Sheikh Omar, how you doing? All right, this is a question that is directed to Sheikh Omar. He started off by talking about KPIs in the healthcare industry. That's where I am as well. I would have really loved for him to kind of elaborate more on some of the KPIs / metrics that we measure in the healthcare industry, and how, since he is involved in nonprofit dealing with the healthcare sector back home, are these metrics or KPIs being measured back home? If they are not, what are some of the KPIs that you recommend can be measured back home in order for our healthcare system to be, a little bit more efficient?
That's a good question. So I think working in healthcare here in the Gambia, collaborating with the ministry, it has its sort of ebbs and flows. But one of the challenges with measuring KPI at the Ministry of Health in Gambia itself is lack of baseline, right? So we go down and we'll say, look, we want to work with you to solve heart disease problems in Gambia. But we can't solve that unless we actually know how many people have heart disease that go through this hospital. And so when we went down there, we sort of recommended some KPIs. We'll tell them the RVH, EST, they call it. I always call it RVH. I feel bad for that, but that's sort of cultural. But there's a lot of doors getting into that hospital. What I told them is, let's forget all the doors. Let's just go through the ER and figure out how many people are coming through that emergency room with cardiovascular issues, heart problems. We measure that first. Then we know, at least on average, how many people come to the hospital with heart disease, and we start figuring out how to scale from there and survey the landscape and put numbers on heart disease. Then we can give ourselves some measurables, right? We have this many people with high blood pressure. We have a target to reduce that number by 25% in 10 years. And those are some of the metrics that I've worked with them on. On the medical device side, the metrics are a little bit different because I work in sort of medical affairs, which is running clinical trials. So my KPIs sort of are the same fundamentally, but I measure like a completely different set of data. But for the nonprofit side, working with the ministry, we try to break it down into bite-sized pieces. We'll say, look, we can't work with you to try to solve cardiovascular disease unless we actually know how much of it we have. And if we do know that, then we can set the kind of KPIs we want. How can we reduce that number by X percentage? And how do we know we're getting there? We can use our awareness metrics. We could do surveys. We could do, like somebody just mentioned, what kind of marketing are we doing to raise the awareness of heart disease in the communities? And if that's resonating, to kind of come back to that space in the ER and saying, you know what? In May, we had 40 people coming here with heart attacks. In June, that number reduced by 1. And that's enough for me to say, okay, we may have an impact here, but for us to believe that that's actually real, we have to make sure we can replicate that, right? That 1 turns to 2 turns to 3. If we have 1 in May and 1 in June, 1 in July, then we start saying, okay, we're getting stagnant because we're not sort of adding to that number. So I hope that helps. Partly is because, in Gambia, like I said earlier, people do not want to measure KPIs. I think it's by design, but I'm a pessimist when it comes to Gambia right now. But it's by design. People absolutely are like, you want me to measure that? That shows whether or not I'm doing actual work. I am not going to do that. And for the most part, they get away with it. That's just to be completely honest with this audience. I hope that answers the question, Pastor. Let me know if it doesn't.
Yes, it does. But it's just like you said, it's not like there's a lack of data. I mean, hospitals and healthcare systems, they produce a lot of data. So it's not because of a lack of data. I guess it's just because of what you said. Just they just do not want to measure it because it kind of puts them out there, to show whether they're actually doing their jobs or not.
Oh yeah, I asked the director of health service. I'm like, how much money does EST-USA make? He says, well, we don't know that number. I'm like, well, it's actually easy to know that number, right? Because all you need to do, Gambia has more banks per capita than any nation in the world. I could tell you that right now. I said, go to Trust Bank, tell them to open a branch at the hospital. Now, every patient that comes pays at the bank branch, gets a ticket, they get treated. At the end of the month, you will know how much money you actually make. But they don't want that because that takes money out of somebody's hand and he's going to fight you to death. If you're going to measure how much money actually comes into that hospital. But it's absolutely easy. Stop having people pay in cash, open a bank branch right inside the hospital. That's it. That bank branch is dedicated to the hospital. People walk in there, they pay the money at the teller, they get a ticket. That money goes right into the hospital bank account, and you would know fairly quickly how much money you make. But by design, nobody wants to know how much money that hospital makes because I'm sure everybody's have an example like that in Gambia, for sure. But it's not unique to Gambia. That's everywhere. I work in a company. There's people who've been there 40 years. If I tell them, hey, look, we need to measure whether this is working, 9 times out of 10, they'll push back. If they don't want to measure that, that exposes whether or not they're doing their work well. And they've been doing it the same way for 40 years. They don't want to expose themselves to that. That's exposing your flank, and they don't want that. It's a natural human behavior. And that's part of KPIs too, changing human behavior.
Thank you, Sheikh. Certainly adding some pepper.
Human beings, man, I'm telling you.
Do you have something else? I think Bubacarr has, he's raised his hand. He has something to add. So we'll let Bubacarr add something.
I think this is relevant to both us and Assutech and anyone in tech in the Gambia in general. People tend to think once you have, I remember at some point we wanted to do a digital platform in one of the ministries or one of the departments. The head of the department said, I don't have computer. Unfortunately, UNDP decided to buy a computer for that person. And we as a technician, at some point we went to install the.
Oops, I think we lost Bubacarr there.
I think whoever.
You on mute, Terry. You're on mute.
Hello.
Oh, Bubacar's back.
Yes, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Continue, please.
Okay. Yes, when we went we installed the system and everything, and then the guy just put one big blanket somewhere and just covered the picture and said, I don't like computer. and for me, it has to come from the top. It's very important to implement technology from the top, because once it is implemented, it will filter down, and then everyone will actually be able to do something that can be tracked at some point, especially when it comes to the revenue aspect. There is a medical entity in the Gambia, one of the best in the Gambia, by the way. They implemented a total digital transformation. And for us, before that digital transformation, we believe they were the professional. It's not a government entity. We believe they are better in terms of management and discipline and all these things. And one of the data managers told me that they realized 60% increase in revenue after full digitization. I said, if that institution is achieving 60%, then government will achieve 500%. So as you said in the bank case for the hospital, I believe the hospitals or most of our systems are self-sustained if the proper KPI are implemented and the technology needed are also deployed. I believe most of our entities and initiatives in the Gambia are self-sustained. Thank you.
Thank you, Bubacarr. Certainly, certainly. Very, very nice additional pepper to the story. So from what we gather, it seems there are certain people that are against measuring, because of course it shows that you're not performing well when people start measuring what you're doing. I think Pons asked if he was selling, was it watermelons? How can he make sure he has KPI information that can help him, sell year-round instead of seasonal? Of course, there are lots of different variables that come into play to answer that question, because number one, are the KPIs the reason why this person is not able to sell all year round, right? So that's the first question. Will having a KPI solve the problem? That's the first question to ask. Because selling watermelon year round, or let's even make it more relevant, let's say even the tourist sector that is also seasonal. So things that are seasonal, there are so many different variables or even metrics that could be measured. But in terms of correlating this data, we have the likes of Olawale, who can do research and they're good with data. But there's a lot of research that needs to be in place. People need to research what are the causes. Some companies, what they do, for instance, even though they already have KPIs, like Best Buy in the US, for example, they were not, they wanted to increase their sales. So the first things they asked to themselves were, what are the different factors that can affect sales? What are the different variables? What are the touch points? How many things, how many angles can I look at this specific problem to see what factors there are? How can I improve these factors, right? Because I'm already measuring number of sales, but how about, engagement? How about customer engagement? Okay, so let's start with that. Let's do a test. Let's pilot. So they did a study, they did a pilot, and they had their people on the floor engage the customers as soon as they walk in. So they increased the number of touch points. Remember, touch points are so important. If you increase the number of touch points, it gives you a greater chance of selling your product. So how many times can you interact with a customer will give you a greater chance of succeeding to persuade them, rather than if you have a small number or a greater number. But one important or interesting thing they found out, the more the customers that were engaged, once they started doing that in some of their stores, they were making more sales than the other stores where they were not engaging their customers. So, okay, could we say that it was a cultural shift, or it was a market shift that in that specific region? Of course, there are many other factors that could have been in play. But when they implemented this customer engagement across the board, right, they found out that they were then making more sales. So they increased their sales revenue by increasing the customer engagement. So they found a way to measure this customer engagement, right? So I mean, even if it's something as simple as when a customer walked in, did your sales agent on the floor, did they go and talk to the customer? Did they ask the customer what they needed? They have certain checklists. Did they tell them about the specials? Did they tell them about the discounts? So just what are these floor agent or sales agents doing? So then you could start to say, okay, there are some variables that you can study in your business that can help you make more sales or help you sell year round. But if you're selling watermelons, for example, the watermelon supply is not limitless. We have an issue in Gambia, where imports now, I don't know what's wrong with ports, but the duty has just kept increasing. Let me just stop there. But really, it's very bad. And if we only have one, I mean, share, if you're interested in this, talk to Solomon Johnson. So, he's with ports. I mean, import and export. But, it's very annoying. They only have one port. And then if there's an issue there, you get delays and delays and delays. And then, of course, if you're someone that's selling fruits, for example, where are the fruits coming from? Is it seasonal? If the fruit itself is seasonal, where can you import? Like some supermarkets, they know where to find fruit. When it's in season, they know the suppliers. When it's out of season, they know the suppliers. And they will pay that money to have that fruit year round. But they also have people that would sell the fruit, because you don't want to have the fruit and not be able to sell it. So as a simple fruit seller, of course, if you want to start with the process of KPIs, the first step is always considering data. How can I measure data? How can I enter data? How can I note it down? Okay, I have a book, fine. Okay, let's say a book. Write down the number of sales. Use your ledger. Use, what are you taking your copying your transactions into? So, okay, let's use a book. If you want to be more, sophisticated, you can start using your phones. You can start using laptops. And one of the things that's killing us in the Gambia is a lot of companies, they're still on the paper route, and I would say mostly in the public sector. Private sector is much better, but in the public sector, I mean, you go, let me even say, like when someone dies in your family, you go, it's paper. They put it in paper, put it in a shelf. And I asked one simple question. I said, how quickly can I retrieve this data? If I ever lost this data, one guy told me it'll take about a week, and you have to pay to get your registration that someone died, death registration, whatever, certificate. It took about a week to find. If this was digitized, it would take 2 seconds. Type the name, first name, last name, bam, boom. He shows up on the system, hit print, stamp it with the office stamp, sign it, and paid. Job done in 5 minutes. Now think about when it's on paper. Now you have to assign someone to find it. You have to pay this guy. He has to pay that guy. He has to pay this other guy. Call me a week later. Oh, no, we've not found it yet. Oh, it's lost. It's gone. So one of the first steps is, as Bubacarr was mentioning, is digitization. Find ways that you can store data, that you can easily translate that data into information, right? So it's not just about copying the data down, noting the data down, but also how can I make sense of this data? Now there are so many different solutions. Lots of companies use Microsoft products. You have, Power BI, for example. Last week we spoke about business intelligence, but Power BI, for example, you can physically go and enter your KPIs. You can create, dashboards that will help you show you if you're getting close or if you're not, if you need to take action. Most companies design KPIs dashboards in a very nice ways. It almost looks like, a speedometer, for example, and you have your red zone, your green zone, so your yellow zone. So you can always try to take action. Okay, if it gets to this point, I take action. If you don't have access to Power BI, what about Microsoft Excel? Even Excel, if you enter Excel and you put formulas in, you can have alerts. When a number gets to a certain point, if it's a threshold, if Microsoft, the Excel will send an email through Outlook to you to say, hey, this number has gone below. It's time to do X action, to take X action. If not, you're going to face this challenge or that challenge. And I think, if we just move this, data mindset, we promote it, we get people to take note of things, even things as simple as inventory. I mean, look at a restaurant. You go to Gambia, some restaurants, this has happened to me many occasions. Oh, today we don't have chicken. Who's keeping the inventory of the chicken, right? I'm here to eat your chicken. So why is there no chicken, right? I need to know who's responsible. Who can I blame? Who's taking inventory? Who's noting it down? So all of this, if it's on paper, of course, it's very hard for me to open that book, go down the list and say, where did we write chicken? How many we have left? Or if it's a board you're using. I mean, in the old school days, yes, people used to use whiteboards and write targets and things, or books. But now we're in the age of computer. You can instantly have notification. There's automation. So it's much more easier for you to use data and even keep track of important indicators or quantitative data that can give you lots of insights that you can use to increase your performance, have more customers being satisfied by your services, and just make you more successful in general. Your pockets will get fatter in the long run. But of course, that was just my 2 cents. I mean, it's 40. Yeah, we've gone over the time quite a bit, and I'm very sorry about that. But what I would like to say is, I think this would be the last item to be discussed. If we want more, of course, we can have a part 2. So what I want to do now is thank you for listening. I will stop there. I know Pons wants to say something. So what we'll do is we'll hear Pons, then we'll hear from the panelists on their closing remarks. And if anyone wants a part 2, yes, we can certainly do it. You know how to reach me. And even from the panelists, if they're okay with a part 2, we can certainly have a second session, because, I would have loved to also talk about some more of, the baby steps. Okay, how do we help organizations from startups to big organizations? How do we help them now to implement these different, strategies that can translate into having good KPIs that can measure the direction? But anyway, let's see, perhaps another time we can discuss some more on that on the part 2 of this. So thanks again to everyone that's been listening, that's with us, that's watching. We will allow now, let Pons give his addition, and then we'll hear the closing remarks from Sheikh Omar, from Hassan, and from Bubacarr. Thanks again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Serin. I just wanted to say this is no session, this convo, that 1 hour can really do justice to. So I really want to appeal to you. I think you have great panelists coming with different views and different perspectives, that you should make it a 4-part series. I don't know how we are going to do it. You have other things, because if you look at our social economic development today, all the things we want to measure, everybody's talking NDPs, everybody's startups are looking at things. We are in an election year. KPIs are key. So I would like you, and you just said different things just now in this your short closing remark. You just said different things, from going to a restaurant, there's no chicken and all those things. You know, those little things that we think we take for granted. You know, yesterday I was at the partners launch of Black Magic, and I asked the guy for a mojito. I was there with my daughter, and my daughter wanted a non-alcoholic mojito. I wanted an alcoholic mojito. And then two other of my colleagues that were there, they said, okay, we needed the menu. Or no menu, but simple things like that. You could have, as people come in, the MC could have said, okay, this is the partner something, the restaurant is not yet set up. Yes, you came for poetry. You know, those little things have made us not to achieve what we want to achieve. All your panelists here are geniuses. They want to do something from home, for home. But we have all those little things that is very frustrating. And I beg you, please, make it a 4-part series. Thank you for the good job.
Thank you, Pons. I think we're going to take you up on that offer. And as an added, we will add you to the panelists as well. So I will set up logistics. I'll contact all of you, you know, and we will be more than glad to discuss further. We will strategize on how best to break it down into a 4-part series, just so we don't take everybody's Saturday away. Otherwise, some people will not like me. But overall, I think it's highly welcome. I mean, every Saturday is useful. I mean, September's coming. We can have another one in September, another one in October, and so on and so on. So every month we have, you know, performance management, because as you said, I mean, it's so important, you know, and people take it lightly, but you know, a lot of times we're navigating in the dark. We're just going by guess game and masla. I don't know. I hope you know that word. So masla, kind of, you know, just accepting things because you think you want to be a nice person, so you accept a lot of how do I put it? A lot of things that are not nice. I don't want to use bad words, but they say that everyone has a bucket where the S word goes in. So you can take so much. Once the bucket fills up, you know, you're gonna explode. So let's see. I hope we all have very deep S buckets, so that we can at least masla a little bit and take more. But at some point, we're going to have to fight back and say, we as the customers, we demand more, we demand better. Let's speak up. Let's not just say, okay, it's fine, give me something else. If chicken's not available, you walk out of there. I'm not paying for my drinks. I'm not happy with you. No chicken, no business. See you tomorrow. You know, let's start taking a stand instead of saying, okay, give me fish then. You know. So, but I'll just stop there. But yeah, definitely we'll link up with everybody and certainly try to get, you know, this repeated. You know, even if it's not every week, but we could do maybe once a month, have this performance series. So look out for the next one in September, part 2, because we have you know, a time in there. So I think that should give everybody time from me to relax a bit, and then we'll come back in September for that. But thank you. Now I'll let the panelists give their closing remarks. And I really want to thank them. They've really been maslaing with me. They must have very deep buckets, because they could have just said, look, you know, 1 hour is plenty. Why are you here keeping us longer? So thank you all. And I'll guess what we'll do is we'll have Sheikh Omar first, then we'll have Hassan, and then Bubacarr. And then after that, you know, we'll bring it to a close. And then in after 1 hour, look out on YouTube. The video should be on YouTube. I normally do it within the hour. It's uploaded and there, unless, you know, there's issues. But normally there's no net issues out here, so I should be fine. But thanks again. Thank you all. Appreciate that. I'll be in the background.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything for the closing. I mean, we went from KPIs to a chicken diatribe and mojitos. But I was gonna say, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm on LinkedIn. You know, my name is the same as it appears on the flyer. So happy to connect with anybody, either on the panelists or on the audience. Some of the folks I already know, but you want to connect, expand our networks, I think this is also a good way to connect different people. So you can find me on LinkedIn, same name as the flyer. So.
Hey, Saren, well, thank you so much for organizing this. I really enjoyed it. And Omar, I'll be very happy to connect with you. Expect a connect from me very soon, and the panelists and the audience for sharing your thoughts. I think that my advice to, or my suggestion to some of the startups is, there's where you want to be tomorrow in the long term, and there's where you want to be in the short term. And it's always very valuable to focus on the first steps, like the baby steps. Scalability is always a good problem to have. If you're at a level where you feel like you need to scale, it's always a good problem to have, and you can always get help. But for starters, maybe what you really want to do is maybe you want to build capacity that did not exist. You want to morph a company culture that did not exist. You want to implement certain processes that you did not have. And once you check off those boxes, slowly you can start, you will cross the bridge when you get there for the bigger things. So I think for startups, it's very valuable for bigger companies to focus on the bigger things. But when you're starting out, if you just focus on the baby steps, slowly but surely you will get there. So I really appreciate sharing your insight. I really learned insights. I really learned a lot for joining this call, and thank you, Saren, for organizing it.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone, panelists, hosts, and all the audience. I'm really happy to be in this call, and we'll connect for sure. I'm also available online, and if you want to connect, the same as the flyer on Facebook mostly, but I will also see how best to activate the LinkedIn is there, but I don't think it's the same profile. Thank you so much. This is very good, and we have to start taking, especially our leadership in terms of business or political, seriously when it comes to the scorecards, the promises, and all these things. In some countries, we are in election year, you will see youths coming up with all the campaign period, whatever the politicians say, they will put it in a scorecard sort of whereby they will use it to measure the promises that the politicians do. I don't see any exception in the Gambia. I believe we have to also see how best to put things together. And as he said, someone just wrote in the text that someone screwed up Sering's chicken, and I believe we should all not maslaha with our folk. Thanks.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you, Bubacarr. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you, Sheikh Omar. Appreciate you all for coming, and looking forward to part 2, September. As I said, we'll share logistics, and as usual, the flyers normally posted on LinkedIn, and Facebook, Instagram. So it'll be shared on different medias, as well as the WhatsApp tech groups in the Gambia. So we try to distribute and get as many people come as we can. But we'll also be sharing this video on YouTube, so that people can watch, people that were maybe busy during this this time period. But thanks again. Thank you all for coming, and really appreciate you. God bless you all, and see you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, Mange. I know that was you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.